so what we're going to be looking at today are the trends for 2020 in regard to multiple topics. We're going to start with personally and recognize that we're really doing this for the collective, everyone who's watching this. And so some things you may relate to and some not, but it should give an overall feel of what to expect on many levels. So we're going to talk about personally, we're going to talk about financially, we're going to talk about community-wise, we're going to talk about politically, we're going to talk about naturally, what's happening nationally, globally, and then we're going to talk to a more spiritual side of ourselves as we look at the global consciousness, our spiritual consciousness, and the Gaia, the planet. But we're going to start with personal. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull 5 cards. The first 4 cards are going to represent the 4 quarters of the year. So basically, January, February, and March will be the first card. April, May, and June will be the second card. July, August, September will be the third card. And October, November, December will be the 4th card. And then the 5th card is just kind of a general card. So let's start thinking of what's coming up for us as a collective on a personal level over 2020. What's the general trend? What's the general trend? So let's see. We have 4 cards that we're pulling representing the first 4 quarters and then a card in general. Well, the first card may look a little scary to some of you, but let me tell you, when the devil is upside down, that's a fabulous card. And to be quite honest, it goes with some of the astrology that some of my astrology friends have been talking about. The devil reversed is the release of not being able to see clearly. And we talk about 2020 vision. So we're going to start with January, February, and March, where we're forced to see clearly. We're not going to be able to live in our delusions or our illusions. Now, once we hit April, May, and June, then we go into the Fool. Now, the Fool doesn't mean we're going to start dancing on tabletops or anything. Fool represents the breath of God, life, prana. It's a new beginning, a new journey. So I feel on a personal level, remember we're talking about personally, on a personal level, once we're kind of forced to see clearly, it's going to start us on a new journey. And so in the spring, April, May, and June, prepare for a new journey. Now, you know how sometimes new journeys can make us cranky? Well, we have the Queen of Swords in our next card, in our next position for us personally. The Queen of Swords can be us not wanting to communicate well, us being cranky. Now, it doesn't mean only women. The tarot cards are not gender specific. And so we may find ourselves, though, with some of the more negative, typical, stereotypical attributes once we hit July, August, and September. And so you may find yourself being more gossipy, being more difficult to agree with. Once we hit October, November, and December, we have the family card upside down. And so we may be really looking at what family, it doesn't necessarily mean problems within the family, although it can, it's the holidays, right? That can be problems in the family. But it can also mean I don't want to keep those traditions going. I don't want to keep up with just because mom and dad did it that way, or just because we've always done it that way, we have to keep going. And so if I can remind you personally, in 2020, in the second half of the year, work on flexibility, work on cooperation, work on mindfulness of looking at how you are reacting in your world. Now, when we look at that general card, that's kind of an overview for 2020 for us personally, this is a card meaning things move quickly. And so I would expect spurts of growth and then taking time off. Spurts of growth, taking time off. But that works the same way. Spurts of crankiness and then backing off and being okay, you know? But things are going to happen in spurts. And so as you go through your growth in 2020, be prepared for things to happen in spurts, good, bad, and ugly. And so if you're having an ugly day, it doesn't have to be an ugly week, right? Just in a spurt. Okay, so that was personal. Now let's go to financial. So now we're looking at finances in a more global level. So this will affect your personal finances. Oh, as a matter of fact, why don't we do 2 rows? We'll do our personal finances and our global finances. So let's look at, first we'll start with personal finances and then we'll add global. And so again, what's our personal finances? Now realize this is as a collective. What is our personal finances in 2020? Well, the first thing we have is working together as a group. This means working together, checking your financials, make sure that your accountant, if you have one, or your financial advisor, if you have one, if not, your husband and wife or your mate or your family, make sure you're all working together with the same financial goals. What are your goals? Are your goals to save money? Are your goals to pay down bills? Like, what are your goals? And make sure whoever your team is working together, and that's, remember, January, February, and March. Now, April, May, and June, you get the good luck card, but it's also the legal card. So if you're waiting for money from a legal settlement, it could come in at that time. But it's also the karma card. You're experiencing the results of your actions. And so if you don't like your money situation in April, May, and June, look to see what actions have you put in previously that may be having that problem. It's going to be very clear. You're not going to have to wonder. Now, there is some confusion, and I feel this probably is market confusion and also job status confusion. And so we'll talk about that. We'll probably see more of that globally. We'll see if it matches. Or we're going to do the United States. We're not going to do globally. We're going to do the United States. So you may find that money's just confusing in July, August, and September. But October, November, December, we seem back in the saddle. And so I would be very cautious about spending money in July, August, and September. I would make sure that you put a little note in your calendar, spend wisely, or maybe wait. Overall, we're looking at long-term plans, not short-term plans during this time. So that's financial that's financial for ourselves personally. Let's look financially for like United States, you know, for us as a country. Now, I know some of you look outside of United States, but this is going to be on United States financial systems, but we will have globally as well. So when we look at finances for the United States as a culture, overall, we have some issues here. January, February, March, poop hits the fan. And so be careful. That could be markets, that could be layoffs, that could be anything that creates the financial global. It could be more problems with trade wars, you know, all sorts of things. And then in the second quarter, April, May, and June, we're still having problems. Partners are not coming together. And I feel this is an argument between the White House and the Federal Trade Administration. I also feel that this is an argument between company owners, and like we saw with the teacher strike, like we saw with the strike that happened in the car industry. I think there's going to be some problems there. I'm happy to say by the time we get to July, August, and September, although in our personal finances we have a lack of clarity, things start getting back on track for us in a more big picture. And then we're feeling, as a country, we're feeling pretty stable going into the new year. But what's happening? This card came up again. Now remember, it was right side up for our personal finances in January, February, or March, but as an overall card upside down, this is a problem. And this speaks to what I was saying in the first half of the year, where we do not have groups working together. What are we going to do next? We're going to talk about community. So this is going to be your community. How is the energy for 2020 going to be in community? So this would be, again, because we're talking about a massive group of people, that's many different communities. Some of these things you may relate to and some not, but let's see what we have. I try to do it in a way that's generic enough that you'll be able to apply it to your community, but not so generic that you could apply it to anything, right? So what do we have for our communities during 2020? What's the trends of our communities in 2020? Oh, well, we have good, bad, and ugly, and I think that's normal. It shows in the beginning of the year we're making a strong commitment to our communities. We are looking at saying we want to help, we want to be doing the right thing, but by the time we get into the second quarter, April, May, and June, we're running a little slack, and we're also not agreeing, and we're not willing to stand up for what we believe in. This tends to make everybody shut down over the summer, and so you may find people are like, well, if you can't do it my way, I'm not gonna even cooperate. And so communities are looking a little messy in the quarterly. We're going to see, though, it's okay in the big picture. Now, I do believe that local communities are going to have problems in the courts, the court system with state and government who has control in the latter part of the year. That would be October, November, and December. And so what would be an example of that? Maybe dealing with homelessness. Maybe in dealing with homelessness, one community wants to do it this way, but the state government won't allow it, or the state wants to do it this way and the national government won't allow it. So it just shows that there could be some court cases. But this is what gives me hope. The overall flavor, this card upside down, right side up, we'd still be in trouble, but upside down, this is a great card for curbing homelessness. This is a great card for communities coming together when it really times get tough. So what's next? Politically. All right, so let's see politically. Now, I am not going to try to predict who wins the election, but I'm just going to look at the overall political vibe and so forth for the country. Again, this is the United States politically over the 2020. All right, so what's coming up politically for the United States in 2020 in the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter, and overall? First part of the year, I think what you're going to find is people are going to be building, donating to wherever they are wherever they believe, whoever they want to believe in politically. And I think you're going to find that this political 2020 election gathers more money than has ever been seen before. When we get into April, May, and June, I think that you're going to find a lot of backfighting. I think you're going to find that there are multiple Republican candidates that come out to run against President Trump, and I think that there's going to be some a very quick drop off. I think in April, May, and June, you're going to see a very narrowed Democratic field, but I think it may be because people start spreading gossip. It's not pleasant. It gets worse as we get into July, August, and September. You're not going to want to look at your TV. It just shows not only divisiveness, but outright lying. And so I think what you're going to find is people are going to say whatever they can think of. I think there's going to be no truth into it at all. I think that's going to be very important to do your own fact checking and not believe anything, red or blue, that you see on TV, in ads, on social media. I would not believe anything that anybody is saying. This also is showing outside interference in social networking. Now we know that's happening anyway, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, that's a given. But I think what you're going to be finding is that there's going to be a lot of people trying to sow discord. So even they may be putting things on Facebook that you believe, right? And you want to share it, but be careful because you're just sowing discord. And so as spiritually focused people, cut that out. It doesn't help. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. So then elections. It shows a lot of people unhappy. A lot of people unhappy, but there are going to be some upsides. So I think that this goes. Remember, we're looking at this in the big picture, people on both sides of the fence. And so I think that a lot of people are going to be unhappy, but they need to look at the bright side. So whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green Party, Libertarian, whatever you are, there's going to be some things you're going to be unhappy with, but stop crying over spilt milk. Start looking at the gains that you have. Now, I feel this card represents over the year 2020. Remember, this is a review or a preview of the whole year. This does not mean how we are at the end of the year. We're crying over our spilt milk at the end of the year, but it's showing no movement, no going towards higher goals. And that was my frown. I just feel that politically we are not going to improve our disposition. And I think that politically we're going to see a continuation of discord. And so what we can do as spiritual people is, before we share a post, first check and make sure it's accurate, because it's probably not, or it's probably spun. That's that King of Swords. But also really look and say, are you really changing anybody's mind? Are you helping? To be honest, I've never seen anybody's mind change through a political post. Now we're going to look at nationally. So how is the U.S. going to do overall? This is very broad, but I always like to do nationally. And then we're going to do globally, so we'll get the whole world in there. So, okay, nationally. Let's see, let me get my little national thing there. Nationally, how are we going to do nationally as a nation how are we going to do as a nation? Okay, so as a nation, I feel that we're going to again see very clearly the moon upside down is things no longer hidden. I think that that's in the first part of the year, January, February, March, and that's coming across the board. Things are gonna be seen that we may not want to have to look at. April, May, and June, we feel insecure as a country. I think that you're gonna find that our value goes down within other nations. Now, this is a card not only financially, but how we're seen as a powerhouse and how we're seen as a light. You know, it's both sides. And so I think that you're going to see our stock, so to speak, sink April, May, and June. Now, that could also be the stock market, but it's not necessarily showing that. We didn't see that necessarily financially in that time frame. Now, it does show a big rah-ha-ha coming up over the summer months. I think that you're going to find a rise in patriotism, a rise, and this could also be going off to war. This could also be going off to war because of the cost. And it would not be, if we go off to war, especially in April, May, and June, is going to cost a fortune. It's going to cost us a fortune in goodwill. Then here we are off trying to save the day, but I feel that by the end of the year, we've gained back some of our worth as a nation. And so I feel that it's going to be tricky between April and September, but I do feel overall we'll come on the other side. Now, here's the thing. This is a card of energy, and we don't have energy. I think that there's not going to be the stomach or the backing for what we as a country are doing over 2020 in both within our borders and without of our borders. I feel that there's not going to be a lot of support. So if we do things outside of our borders, we're on our own. And we've seen that doesn't go well. I think that we'll recover. I think that we'll end up the year nationally And it could just be because the elections are over and we've got what we've got, whichever way it goes. But we seem to pull together as a nation and say, okay, let's move forward. And so even though I feel it's going to be a rocky year nationally, I think that it's going to end up being, in the big picture, I think we're going to pull it together. So that's nationally. All right, globally. So what's going to be going on globally? So this is not U.S. focused. This is more focused on the whole world. How are we going to be doing globally in the first quarter? How are we going to be doing globally in the second quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter, and in general? Ooh. This is globally. So how are we doing globally? I am very excited. I feel that in the first quarter, and this could be all of the heart and all of the love that's going to Australia right now with the fires, but this shows the world coming together in love. I remember when the tsunami hit years and years ago. I saw the world, I saw the wave hitting, and then after the wave, a wave of love that just went all around the world. The whole world came together in love. And I feel that that's what we're going to be experiencing in the first quarter, with January, February, March. What I would say is, how can we contribute to that? See the whole world being enveloped by the love. Move that love, particularly to Australia, and thoughts of rain. If I have issues with that though. Like, right, we think that rain's the answer, and I'm sure it's the answer on the short term, but then we're going to have a mess, you know, out over there, and landslides and things. And so let's not envision, you know, too much rain. But anyway, when I pray for something like that, I don't pray for rain. I pray for what is in the highest and most loving good for that country right now. Because I feel that by saying thy will be done, not my will be done, I feel that I'm really allowing the best possible. Because I may think, oh, rain is great, you know, but as we've seen in California, after fires, rain, yes, the rain puts the fires out, but then it creates major problems. And so, you know, I just leave it up to God. Anyway, so back to globally. Then what I feel we have is the hangman. I feel in the April, May, and June, globally, we're going to pull back and say, we have to just observe and see what's going on. I feel a lot of countries are going to be observing and seeing how things go on. I feel that what we may find is that Brexit is not working out as planned, or maybe it hasn't happened yet by that time, but I see a bunch of people backing off, a bunch of countries backing off and seeing how things go. Globally, I feel that in the summer, there's going to be, let's just take little baby steps. Now, I don't think the United States is going to take that view, but remember, we're looking globally. And so I think that the global is going to say, look, let's look for short-term solutions. Let's just solve this problem and not worry about long-term, short-term solutions. By the time we get to the end of the year, by the time we get to October, November, and December, globally, I really feel that we're going to see clearly. There's not going to be the level of deception that we have now. And I feel that what it's going to do is it's going to raise the consciousness of the entire globe. I feel that reason I feel that is because the final card is the happy family. Now, the happy family is not necessarily you and me and our immediate family, but the globe. Remember, we're thinking globally for 2020. Globally, the happy family. So globally, I have to say, after a messy year, kind of like us nationally, I feel that there's going to be some coming together. I feel there's going to be some sort of a global climate, whether we're involved or not, I can't say as the United States, but a global climate coming together where it's actually getting things done. I feel there's going to be a global response team where we promise to send for natural disasters like Australia, where, and again, whether every country is involved, I don't know, but I see a global coming together. Now, what about our, you know what, I'm going to do our spirituality next. I'm going to do global consciousness last. We're going to change our order a bit because it just seems right to me. Next, we're going to look at our spirituality. This is going to be, I'm going to do it, again, 2 layers. I'm going to do our spirituality privately, personally, you, me, and then I'm going to do spirituality as a global, okay? So let's look at how is our, as you and me, how is our spirituality going to be in 2020? Quarter, second quarter, how is our spirituality going to be in 2020? Oh, fabulous, except for right now. Right now, we are so involved, self-involved right now that, especially with family stuff, that we can't get out of our own way. So how do we solve that? We start to look and say, what am I learning from this messed up family? Now, family can be family or friends, right? It can be our Facebook friends for all I know. But right now it shows personally we're very self-involved. And so let's look at what are the lessons of this family stuff instead of why me? You know, why me doesn't solve anything, or how could they be so bad? That doesn't solve anything. But look and say, what am I supposed to learn from it, and how can I move forward and grow? But then we get better, right? April, May, and June, we really put our study caps on. We look at, I want to trust my intuition and my common sense equally, and there's working more on a balance, working more on balancing intuition and common sense. I talked a lot about this in my article about the year 2020 based on tarot numerology. I'll try to remember to put a link below. But how we're going to be balancing both our common sense and our intuition. But also it looks like a lot of study and a sense of daringness. So you may find you come out of the closet about studying tarot, or you tell people that wow, I'm taking an online class on how to be a better person. Once we get in July, August, and September, it's just like a love bug goes around, you know? We're feeling much more loving and supporting spiritually, but we're also recognizing more this unity consciousness, this oneness consciousness. Some people call it Christ consciousness, where we understand that we are all divine beings. So spiritually, I just see this huge growth in 2020. And then we finish off the year with the sun. This card is, it's fabulous. It's like being born again. It's a card of recognizing that we are all children of the divine. Whatever you call that creative force, whether it's your higher self, a god, goddess, great pumpkin, whatever you call the divinity, we see our connection to it, and we see each other's connection to it. And so when we see someone being mean, we say, oh, wow, they're really struggling right now, versus, oh, why are they such an SOB to me? You know, we're recognizing the lessons in the bigger picture, and that we're all in this together. And that gives us, as as an overview, we learn discernment. We stop judging so much. Now, we're not all going to get it perfect, but this is the trend for 2020. Discernment says, oh, that person isn't healthy for me. It doesn't need to say that person is bad. It's just a discernment that they may not be healthy for me right now. And I'm not bad for not wanting to be around them, and they're not bad for being unhealthy. It just is what it is. You know, oh, the room is messy. The room isn't bad. It's messy. Let's clean it up, you know. So spiritually, on a personal level, things look really good. And now let's look spiritually on a global level. So let me get those cards in, because as we've seen, sometimes they repeat. Okay, I think one more shuffle will do it. So spiritually, all right, let's see. So spiritually on a global level, We're going to do global consciousness, but let's do global spiritual consciousness, right? So how spiritually on a global level, how are we going to be doing in 2020? Oh, wow. Okay. This is good. All right. We're going to start seeing options. We're going to start seeing globally, spiritually. I feel there's going to be a recognition, and this is so needed. My way is my way. Your way is your way. And whatever way you choose, great. Don't step on my way. I won't step on your way. But my way's not the only way. So there's this understanding that there's multiple ways. There's multiple ways to achieve the same goal. And so there won't be as much judging. Oh, my religion's better than your religion. My guru's better than your guru. And it allows us to come together as a global spiritual family. I think you're going to see a lot more cross teachings where, Christianity and another faith may come together and celebrate their sameness. Maybe Judaism and another faith, or maybe transcendental meditation and another meditation are going to come together. It's not all religious, right? We're talking spiritually. Now, what happens? People freak out. This happens all the time. So over the summer, you may be like, oh no, people are trying to mess up our faith. You may see all this nonsense. Just ignore it, because this is beautiful, right? It's beautiful. But then I think we come to our senses, and I think you're going to see spiritual groups coming together from different, like you have, 3 different types of people. In this card is body, mind, and spirit. But we come together, 3 different groups, and come together and brainstorm, how can we get better spiritually? How can we promote spirituality throughout the world? And then the lovers. It's a sacred marriage. We allow ourselves to merge in a way that allows 2 strengths to come together to offer more strength, right? Like a good marriage. So spiritually, globally, I am very helpful. I'm very hopeful. Okay, so spiritually. So now what about Gaia? Poor Gaia. What about the world, the earth? What is going on there? What about Gaia? Gee whiz. Right now, she's on fire. I don't even know if have the Amazon fires been put out? There's so much talk about other fires. Gosh, Gaia, let's see what we have. Let's see about the beginning of the year. 2nd quarter, 3rd quarter, 4th quarter, and final. Gaia's having a hard time right now, right? This is what we had at the end of the year for us nationally or politically, I forget. Anyway, Gaia's having politically, I think it was, Gaia's having a hard time. One of the things that I will always remember is that whether it's the Nile, when it floods, it leaves the land more fertile. When you want to have more fertile land, you have fires. That's how they used to leave fertile. And so, yes, these things are sad, but there's going to be something that comes out of it. Maybe that group I was talking about that's getting together about climate change. I think that there's going to be a lot of volcanoes, a lot of earthquakes. Death doesn't mean the world's going to die, but it's going to change. And so I think you're going to find that there are some land changes. We've seen it already. Some islands are not there anymore, or they're getting to be not there anymore. I think you're going to see, especially in April, May, and June, I think you're going to see some major changes. But then in July, August, and September, we start looking towards the future, and Gaia starts looking towards the future. And so my feeling is that we're going to be able to see Gaia recovering. Maybe little sprouts, but see Gaia recovering. I feel, though, that, again, there's going to be some issues, man-made, I'm afraid to say, towards the end of the year that could create more problems. And I feel that Gaia's not going to be happy this year. I don't see this as a positive year for the planet as Gaia. I do feel the summer should have some positive things, but I think overall it's going to be tough. And so what do you do about it? You know, pray for Gaia in a way that's for her highest and most loving good. Pray for the earth. Pray for our representatives, whether they're the country you live in or the world representatives. Pray for wisdom for them to make good choices about the planet. We can do a lot of things to help this out. Right now it's not looking good. One of the things that I love about the Tarot is it shows us where problems are, and so that we, especially in a mass consciousness, can shift and change that. And so whatever it is, if you're not a prayer, pick up some garbage, you know. If you're not a write your congressperson or a write the world leader person, then pick up some garbage, you know. Do what you can. Don't worry if you're not a person that can make a big change, then make a little change. Because if we all made little changes, you know, look at your recycling, look at how much plastic you're buying, do little things. It can make a big difference if we all would do it, right? Okay, so that's Gaia. We're going to finish up with this global consciousness, and this is not necessarily spiritually, but where is the world's consciousness? Let's look at that over 2020. And then I'll see if I have a little channeled message at the end. What is the global consciousness for 2020? Okay, global consciousness. What do we have here? Well, this is amazing. This is the card of happy childhood. This is the card of loving care. You know, this man's bringing this. I always think of it as his nephew bringing the old aunt some flowers. You know, it's also a card of past lives, and so you may find globally a resurgence of past life regression, stuff like that. But also, I just think kindness. I think January, February, March is going to be a time where globally we're thinking kindness, and so you know that's that love going around the world right now. Let's be a part of that. April, May, and June, we let go of feeling the need to figure it all out, and we go with the flow more. I mean, that's fabulous. So there's more going with the flow. Summer, people are not cooperating. I feel that this could have to do with either the United States or another country declaring war, and people are not for it. People are not with it. I would more likely think it's the United States, but I'm not, you know, nobody's 100% accurate. And so I think war is going to happen someplace, but it is not agreed on. And I feel that it's going to put the global consciousness in a depression. And so I feel towards the end of the year, you may find a little bit heavier weight. But overall, I think that we're going to be in a place of activism, a place of we can do something about it, and actually taking some action. Especially mid to late year, it's going to be more important to be mindful of how you are affected. Many of us are empathic, how we're affected by others, and do everything you need. Pull out all the tools in your toolkit to be able to kind of compensate for some of that lower vibration. Okay, let's see what channeled message we have, and we'll finish up with that. So one moment. There are only so many days in the year, but each day can be a call to action. A call to action to create a world that has a vibration that you want to see in your own life. The vibration you want to see in the world and the vibration that you want to see in your life can match. That's not impossible. What we need to do is to start with ourselves. Be mindful when we wake up. What vibration do I want to see in my world? It will ripple out. The promise is there. It will ripple out. And so when you wake up each morning, you have 350 some odd days in order to do this. When you wake up in the morning, say, what vibration do I want in my world? How do I focus that vibration and vibrate it out? How do I find that in myself? Whether it's a word of the day that you pick out of an angel card deck, or whether it's the same word every day, whether it's peace, love, charity, growth, compassion, cooperation. And that's a good one, cooperation. Whatever that is that you want to see in the world, have it within yourself first, consciously. Your conscious mind is the projector of your world. Consciously choose the vibration, and you may have to consciously choose it 100 times during that day. And that's okay. That's normal. Find ways to bring yourself back into mindfulness. Maybe set your timer, to ring every hour to say, where's my headspace? Where's my consciousness? What am I vibrating, right? You have the opportunity. You have the strength. You are your world. So what you vibrate at is going to affect your world. And you can be that acorn that ripples out into the pond. You can be what creates the ripples in the world. So be aware of your space, your vibration, and in that way you can be a positive blessing on the world, a positive blessing on everyone you meet, a positive blessing for yourself. So be that positive blessing throughout 2020. Anything you saw today is up for change. We can change anything by changing the vibration. If we all chose to vibrate a little bit higher, it would shift everything. Remember, any prediction is just that. It's a prediction. You and me, all of us are born with free will. We have free will to shift and change. When we see something coming that doesn't fit the vibration that we want, we can recognize that, shift the vibration within, radiate it out, and do our best to shift the world around us. 2020 has the opportunity to be one of change for the good, one of conscious and global spiritual growth. The spiritual outlook looked fabulous. And so let's bring our vibration out into the world and be a blessing to all those that you meet.